So I was born on April 5th in 1984 in Memphis, Tennessee, the land of the Memphis Blues. My father was named after his father, and I was named after mine, making me the third member of my family to carry the Robert Jefferson name. My younger sister Libby was born a year and a half after me in Memphis as well. Now, my family moved quite a bit in the first 10 years of my life or so. We moved from Memphis to Lexington, Kentucky, to Middletown, Ohio, followed by Phoenix, Arizona, and we even spent a really small amount of time with my aunt and uncle in Palm Springs, California. And so by the time I was 7 years old, we had moved to Seattle, and for me, these were some of the best years of my life. My mom always had this extremely outgoing and adventurous personality, and I think it'd be fair to say that she never really met a stranger in her life. And so when we moved to Waterford Apartments in Kent, Washington in 1992, she immediately made friends. And I remember that one of the friends that she had, one of the people she met, was a woman named Angel. Now, Angel was married to Alonzo, and they had a son named Ace who was about my age. And much like me and my dad, Ace was named after his dad. Now, looking back, it's actually kind of funny to me because when my mom was really outgoing and adventurous, I was too. But when I meet new people, I tend to get a little bit nervous, and this was really no different here. And so I actually kind of shied away from Ace initially, but eventually I came around and we became really fast friends. Now, here's the funny thing about the 1990s. In the 90s, we didn't have Xbox Live, and we had no PlayStation Network, and we didn't have Steam. And so if we wanted to hang out with our friends, we had to go over to their house and play their game console. And so the funny thing was I had a Super Nintendo, and Ace had a Sega Genesis. And so needless to say, we spent a lot of time at each other's houses. Now there was this really funny time when I lived in Seattle. We had this fort in the back of the apartment complex. Myself, Ace, and his cousin, I think his name was Marquise. We would hang out all the time. We'd have fun. We'd kind of chill in this fort. The neighborhood kids would hang out with us too. Well, there was one day after it had finished raining, like it always does in Seattle, and we were playing in the fort, and we got the idea to swing off one of the branches. And so, of course, Marquise went, and he didn't have a problem. He swung off the branch, and then Ace went, and he swung off the branch. I was the king of bad luck at that point in time, and so I went to swing off the branch. And when I went to go swing off the branch, I lost my grip. And so as I started tumbling down, I put my arm down to basically brace my fall. And when I did, I dislocated my elbow. And it was the most excruciating pain I'd ever experienced in my life, but it tickled at the same time. It was really hard to describe. And so I'm just screaming. I mean, I'm probably crying more due to panic because I don't know what's going on than anything else. And I remember distinctly that Ace looked at my elbow and went, ew. And so he's like, I'm gonna go get Miss Cindy. So he runs back to the apartment to get my mom, knocks on the door. Within a few seconds, although at the time it probably felt like an eternity, I hear this screaming, Bobby! Bobby! Mama Bear was in panic mode. She was freaking out. She came running, screaming. By this point, I brought out damn near the whole neighborhood with all my screaming and hollering, all my bellowing and everything. And so she comes running down, picks up Baby Bear, takes me back to the apartment. So we call the ambulance. The ambulance shows up, takes me to the hospital. Now at this time, my family was struggling financially. And so the biggest concern I think my parents had at the time was how are they going to pay for the medical bills? Now, I didn't find out a lot of this stuff until years later. But what my mom had told me when I was much older was that when they had taken me to the hospital to set my, to relocate my elbow, I don't really know how you would do the opposite of dislocating. But when they tried to set it, they ended up breaking my arm. And so as a result, the hospital paid for all the medical bills. And yeah, we were pretty much fine after that. Now, during this time, while all this was happening, my dad was a totally different kind of person. My dad spent all his time on his computer. When he wasn't working, eating, sleeping, or watching Star Trek, The Next Generation, I guess, he was in front of his computer. That's really all he did. And unfortunately, what initially started as a hobby or a desire to learn about computers turned into an obsession. And by the summer of 1995, it all boiled over into the form of a wedge in the marriage of my parents. And so I remember that my dad brought my sister and I into the living room and asked us how we would feel about moving back to Lexington, Kentucky. Initially, I was so excited because it would mean I would get to see family that I'd only seen rarely. But once we arrived, though, things really took a dark turn. See, following the divorce of my parents and my mom choosing to stay in Seattle, my dad became a very bitter man. He hated the world for his lot in life. The problem was that because my mom wasn't in the picture, the only people he could take his anger out on were my sister and I. And sometimes he would use his words, but most of the time he would use his fists. Now, a couple of years after moving back to Lexington, my dad met a woman named Anita. And I don't really want to sound dramatic here, but Anita was this bright light in this crappy world my sister and I lived in. And the reason why was because when Anita was around, or when my dad was going to visit her, he was a totally different person. He was kind, he was courteous, but more importantly, he wasn't hitting or screaming at me and my sister. And so in the summer of 1998, my dad bought plane tickets for me and my sister to go see my mom in Seattle. And we were ecstatic because we really hadn't heard that much from her since my parents got divorced. We got maybe a birthday card the first year, but that was pretty much it. We really didn't hear anything from her anymore at that point. But unfortunately, my mom was in a relationship with a guy who I guess really wasn't what he made himself out to be. But I'm not going to go into a discussion about that because that's a really bad situation. But by 1999, my mom had moved back to Lexington, and I was a freshman at Lafayette High School. I had enrolled in beginning voice chorus, and apparently I had inherited my mom's singing voice. My mom was an opera singer when she was in college, and honestly, she had the most beautiful voice that I had ever heard in my life. And my mom loved to listen to me sing. It was, I don't know, she loved hearing me sing. She said that I had such an amazing voice. But the problem was my dad was looking to move closer to his fiance at this point. And so we uprooted. I left everything, all my friends behind in Lexington and Lafayette, and we moved to northern Kentucky. Now, I lived there with my dad for about a year or so, but I just never really fit in. I never really became part of that group of people, that community. And so ultimately, I moved in with my mom and I finished out high school. Now, in 2003, I started working at the University of Kentucky, and I actually worked there for about 11 years. And over the course of these 11 years, these were probably the most important years of my life. And the reason why was because I was so naive going into this job. But over the 11 years that I was there, I learned so many life lessons. And one of the most important lessons I learned was the difference between adult decisions and child decisions. What I mean is that in life, I think we're presented with these forks in the road, more or less. And the choices that we make when we come to these forks in the road determine what kind of person we grow into and how we grow into that person. My job required that I work second and third shift. And so while my friends were out partying, while they were going to bars, I was working. And I used this time to expand my horizons. I used this time to start reading books on philosophy and politics and all these different things to more or less broaden my horizons. Now, eventually, I found myself enrolling in college, but the problem was that once I enrolled in college, it just wasn't a fit. I never really felt like I belonged there. Of course, I did great. I got a 98% in my calculus class. I took some political philosophy courses, but for me, it just never seemed like I could always do something that didn't require college. I could go beyond this archetype that a college degree was necessary to achieve success in life. But there was a downside here. In 2010, my life took this drastic turn. I was at my mom's house, and we were planning to get dinner that night. We would usually go out to get dinner once or twice a week, and this was one of those nights. I was watching TV, really just kind of killing time, waiting for her to be ready, but she was actually waiting on a phone call because she was expecting the results on a blood test for a surgery she intended to have for her knee. She had really bad arthritis. And so once she got this phone call, I remember that she got extremely quiet. And then she said, okay. And so, I asked her, I said, hey, what's going on? Was that the doctor? Was that the results? And I'll never forget, when she turned and she looked to me, she was crushed and she was confused and she was angry all at the same time. And then she started crying uncontrollably. And I said, what's wrong? And she said she had cancer. And she ended up dying 1.5 years later. There's this Japanese poet, or there was. He actually died in 1933. His name was Kenji Miyazawa, I think it was. And he once said that to live on in the hearts of others is to never truly die. I don't really know why I'm adding that in here, but I felt like I should. So by 2014, by January or so, I started this YouTube channel. And those of you guys who were around when this whole YouTube channel first started, although I imagine with the changes that I've made over the course of the last 1.5 years or so, there's probably not that many left. But you guys remember that this whole YouTube channel was started under the basis of making sense of the Marvel Universe to non-comic readers. A mom who is, I guess, a stay-at-home mom or watches games or something like that, trying to find a way to identify with her son, to find this common ground with her son, could watch one of my videos and immediately understand what the Avengers were about. And so when her son said, I want to go see the Avengers, she would understand why he loved the Avengers so much. And as time progressed, so many of my friends had said that I was so good at teaching people things. And so I just started taking these elements and incorporating them into my YouTube channel, and the videos began to evolve, and the videos began to grow. They began to sort of take on a life of their own, and before I knew it, I was in this world of being a YouTuber. I met Benny, I met Sal, and the YouTube Avengers were born. We had created this incredible concept in the realm of YouTube. We had found ourselves bringing together all these different comic book YouTubers together, I guess, creating this community that was already in existence, just kind of fragmented, and it was so awesome to see this world forming in front of our very eyes, watching it take place in real time. But in the same year, last year, tragedy struck a second time. My stepmom, Anita, had called my sister and I. Of course, her and my dad had been married for quite some time at this point. And she said, your dad's got some news from the doctor. You guys need to come down to Tennessee. Because by this point, my dad and my stepmom had moved down to the city just outside of Nashville. And with this being 3 years after my mom died, my sister and I were so sure my dad had cancer. I mean, we figured there's, what else could this be? It was the first thing that cropped up in our minds. And we were right. Pancreatic cancer with a 95% mortality rate within the first 10 years. Dad died before the year was over. And so as it stands now, YouTube is my job. I make videos for you fine people, explaining the intricate complexities of comic books, making sense of this extremely daunting concept for newcomers, and providing a refreshing nostalgia trip for older fans. And before I end this video, I want to say this. I don't consider my life to be remarkable in any real fashion. I think my experiences fall in line with the experiences of so many others, and this intertwining of life experiences is a common ground that reminds us that while we may come from different backgrounds, religious beliefs, or worldviews, at the end of it all, we're all humans craving the same connection to one another. What we've built here with this YouTube channel over the course of the last year is a platform for us to come together to share this love for a similar thing: comic books. More than that, it's a chance for us to cast aside our differences and to share our fondness for a common concept. And to me, that is one of the most remarkable achievements that I think any of us could have made in our lives. With that being said, I want to thank everyone for helping this channel grow to 200,000 subscribers, and I can't wait to see where we go from here.
The shadow